Okay.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Squamish Advisory Design Panel meeting for Thursday, January 15th, 2026. I'd like to start off by acknowledging that we're on the Squamish Nation traditional territory for this meeting. And I guess before we adopt the agenda, we have to appoint the advisory design panel chair for this coming year of 2026. So I guess to start that, does anybody want to put their name forward to be chair or nominate another member of the ADP to be the chair? And I suppose folks online, just you could raise your hand and we'll call on you, or folks in the room, you can just let me know if you have a suggestion. Anybody?
I will note that Carlos Zabarce, our UDI representative, had offered to be chair for 2026, so he certainly can be a nominee if nobody else is excited to throw his hat in. However, he is not at the meeting today. Conflict of interest.
Are you allowed to nominate the chair?
I think he did tell me he was interested. I can't nominate, but I can
so
say that
somebody else
would
need to nominate. Yes. Does anybody want to nominate Carlos to be the chair of the advisory design panel?
I'll nominate him. Yeah.
Luke's nominated Carlos. Okay, and
I'll second.
And Sarah seconded it. I think we'll. Awesome. Okay, so we got one name on the floor. Is there anyone else who'd like to nominate anyone else or themselves for this position? So by acclamation, can we make Carlos the chair? All right, Carlos is the chair.
Do we need a first and a second? Do we need a first and a second for that?
Do we need? Well, I can solve with him.
Yep.
Put it in the motion, but are you, I just reported your nomination.
We could all vote, but it doesn't matter. There's nobody else. Okay, so Carlos is it. And then since Carlos is not here today to chair the meeting, shall I continue chairing the meeting? Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Luke's going to move that
I'll move that you
continue chairing.
I'll move that you continue chairing for this meeting. Yeah.
Okay, and Andrew's going to second that. And anybody opposed to me chairing the meeting for the rest of the day? Okay, I will continue on. So our third item is adoption of the agenda. The recommendation is that the January 15th ADP agenda be adopted as amended. So just note that it was amended this morning to add the appointment of the chair. So maybe can somebody move to adopt the agenda? Andrew, second Luke. Anybody opposed to adopting the agenda? Seeing none, we'll have that done. Next, we have minutes from the last meeting of December 18th. Could I have someone move to adopt the ADP minutes from December 18th? So we got Sarah, seconded by Andrew. All in favor? Is anyone opposed? Oh, Celso's opposed. Celso, do you want to say something? Oh, no, not opposed. Okay. Celso's in favor. All right. Minutes have been adopted. Now into business. So the first item of business is an introduction to the ADP and opportunity for questions and answers with Jessie Fletcher, who is the manager of current planning for the District of Squamish. Jessie, over to you.
Thank you, John. I've got there we go. Okay. As John said, good afternoon, Advisory Design Panel. My name is Jessie Fletcher. I'm the manager of current planning with the District of Squamish and the employee staff representative for the panel. I'm going to do a very brief overview. We've got two new members of the Advisory Design Panel. Elle Ziegler is our new member at large. Please let me know if I say your last name incorrectly. Good, excellent. And then we also have Shora Pavresh, who's not on the call today, but she's our new AIBC representative for the 2026 to 2028 term. And then we still have two vacancies. We recently amended the advisory design panel bylaw so that we've replaced the engineering representative with another member at large. And we still have a vacancy for the BCSLA landscape position. So we're waiting for a nomination there. So we should
Both a member at large.
landscape position to fill. Yes, a member at large and a landscape position to fill, and we're hoping to bring that forward in February. There's the other change that's happened is terms have traditionally run from September to September. We heard back from BCSLA that was not in line with the other nominations that they do for everybody else. So we have moved terms from January to December. So if your term is ending this year, you just might not be invited to 4 meetings, and we're going to wait and renominate for the next cycle, which you don't need to worry about for now. Anyways, so moving along, so the advisory design panel has 3 main roles and responsibilities as outlined in the ADP bylaw. It's to advise on development proposals during review, typically development permits, though sometimes rezonings if they're at a larger scale. Also to advise upon district policies in development and municipal projects under preparation. ADP has no approval authority. However, your recommendations are taken by staff to resolve with the applicant, and then all minutes are presented to council with any consideration for approval of a development permit project. So the role of ADP is to advise on development proposals, specifically the DPA guidelines. Those will be attached at the end of every report, and to comment on items such as exterior materials, textures and colors, landscape design, signage and lighting, site layout, accessibility, GHG reductions through exterior design, and the interpretation of the DP guidelines. During meetings, the procedure is typically that the chair will run the meeting. After the application is presented to panel or the project as it is, you'll do a round of questions and then a round of comments, and then finally a motion. Typically, the reports from staff will outline what we're seeking feedback on, specifically where we see misalignment with the guidelines or with other policies. And that's my presentation. Are there any questions? Oh, I think Sarah has a question.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's, we're typically commenting on the exterior of the building, but in the public spaces of the building, if I'm supposed to comment on function of the accessibility, then that needs to be provided. And what I noticed with this package is that there is none of that. So in the amenity building, it doesn't exist. It's hard to understand, excuse me, the access points into the daycare and out of the daycare. So, I find that this package is lacking a little bit.
Thanks for that, Sarah. We can always bring that back to the applicant, and I'll note that with our staff moving forward.
Any more questions for Jessie? Thanks, Jessie, for attending and sharing that with us.
Thanks, John. If I may, I'll just add, if you do ever have questions, feel free to reach out to me by email. I'm happy to answer them.
Fletcher at squamish.ca.
Correct.
All right. Well, thanks, Jessie. So now we welcome Bryan Daly to introduce the project. Thanks, Bryan.
The architects want to have a seat over here, please. So you can just figure your USB for your presentation. It's already been installed. Oh, it's on there. Good afternoon, ADP. My name is Bryan Daly, planner with Community Planning. Today we have 2 separate development permits in the Cheekeye neighborhood. The first is the apartment application. Bear with me here 1 moment, please. Apologies. So the first application is DP 640, which seeks to establish the form and character of 3 apartment buildings located on an unaddressed parcel of land on Ross Road, referred to as Parcel E in the Cheekeye development. Building 1 includes 1,533 square meters of commercial space that is proposed to be used as a daycare and 85 affordable rental units. Building 2 has 85 market rental units, and Building 3 includes 137 market apartment units and an amenity building for the condo owners. This development permit application is subject to Development Permit Area 3, Universal Form and Character Guidelines. This project has not been previously presented to the panel, and staff are generally supportive of the site plan and specifically request ADP's recommendation on building form and character, landscaping, and the landscaping as it presents to DPA 3. With that, I'll pass it over to the architects for their presentation.
Skip architects, we said. We also have Emma from Polygon, so if there are questions, you can go through me to Emma. So you know where it is. I've been around the block a time or two. I was just saying I'm a little bit older than many of you, and we've had lots of experience. And I know that with design panels, and I've chaired lots of design panels, that you've had an opportunity to see the development permit drawings. So I won't talk over you or mansplain or architect explain to you what it is you're looking at, but we'll just give you briefly what we're looking at. So E and F, E is the apartment site, F are the townhouse site, and after this, we're going to present F parcel as well. Both are owned by Polygon, and they're part of the, as Bryan said, the larger Cheekeye neighborhood. They're actually well located because there are 2 schools close by. There's the park and the forested area to the west and the south, and new single-family development across Ross Road to the east. The future development of Cheekeye probably will be coming to you at some point. So here's the apartment site, and we put it in context with the townhouse site because there is some relationship between the two and interuse between the two. Apartment site there. You can see a parcel to the northwest of the apartment site that will be developed in the future. It's not been cited exactly what it will be, but likely will be a similar form of development to the apartment sites that we're seeing here now. It may have some retail or community uses in that. This is slow. Three buildings. And for panel, I think, and as an architect, I'm actually quite pleased to be involved in a project that it's not all just condominiums or not just all rental or not just all affordable, but it's a mixture of all three. So it really is sort of community gathering, community knitting together. Building 1 is affordable rental. It also has daycare for 162 children in the daycare. Building 2 is market rental, and building 3 is the condominium, so it's market condominium. The site itself is quite generous, and that's another great thing, that the buildings have been sited so they open up to the forest to the west, and you get south and west exposure into this. It's actually a very large common area inside the 3 buildings, which is another great feature of the site. You'll see we've looked at different kinds of orientation of the 3 buildings, and the decision was made to have buildings 1 and 3 provide street frontage along Ross Road, so it defines the edge of the site for Ross Road. And buildings 1 and 2 basically follow the parallel to the property lines. Building 3 is a bit of a hockey stick shape. So the south property line, and the south property line is the gray, where the edge of the gray is, it's angled from that. And there are 3 reasons for that. One is that is the natural contour of the site. The contour of the site is diagonal, and this generally follows that. The second is that it provides increasingly open space and separation from the townhouses to the south. And the third is it allows a greater orientation to south to sun for building 3. Here we are in 3 dimensions. You guys would have seen that before, showing the 3 buildings on the site. Again, 2 buildings. These are all of the same family. So each of them has some differentiation to it, but they all relate together. They all seem to be all part of one larger package. So building one, this is the affordable rental. It's got its own front door to the building as well as daycare access. It also has its own amenity space on the ground floor. Building two, as you saw, was part of the interior portion of the site. We have to bring in an internal lane and turnaround, and that's for firefighting purposes. We have to have a fire truck within 15 meters of the front door. So we've minimized how far that roundabout and lane come in so we can maximize the open space in the site. The third building, this is the Market Condominium. Again, it's got a front door, two-story lobby, and some amenity on Ross Road. One of the great things about the orientation of the site and I was talking about the grading of the site, that it actually goes down to the southwest, is that it allows us to tuck the amenity space and indoor and outdoor amenity space into the building, but it's at the parkade level. So it's really taking advantage of what otherwise might be a parkade wall and allows that to be the outdoor space. This indoor and outdoor amenity space will be shared by the townhouses, which we'll be presenting second. So the strata townhouses and strata condominiums share the amenity space inside and outside, and they share the cost of that. So it's not the rental and affordable rental are not burdened with that cost. I also want to point out, you can't see it as well here, but the parkade on the west side next to where the forested area is, that's pulled back quite far to minimize any impact on the existing forest and to provide a really nice integration of fire smart landscaping between the property line on the west and the buildings themselves. Here is the indoor and outdoor space. Sarah brought up aspects of accessibility. Be very clear, we know that with all three buildings, we need accessible access into the lobbies. We have elevators, so there's accessible access to all levels. With the daycare, there is accessible access, and we recognize it's not just for accessibility, but just for people pushing strollers or young children and so on. So all of them are universally accessible. The site you would have seen with the development permit package, the siding, we're using cementitious siding, variety of colors, and we're trying to break up the massing of the building with different color usage and different condominium or different railing designs. Again, here's the internal drop-off area. It also provides access to the parkade access for buildings 1 and 2. They have their own separate parkade, which you would have seen in the development permit drawings. Again, for the building 3, the condominium building, again, part of the same family, but different colors and orientations and so on. And one of the things to keep in mind is that so many people are going to experience the buildings from the ground plane. Either they're driving in or more likely walking in. And so that first 1 and 2 stories, as we all know, those are the most critical, and every single lobby building has a different lobby and different entrance that would be identifiable. This is a view of the indoor amenity space with the pool and so on the outside. I think this is going to be a huge hit for the population in this area. You know, to have indoor and outdoor amenity space, it pulls people together, allows them to get to know each other. You can go to yoga or fitness or stretch or other kinds of things, or lay by the pool, maybe not, and actually maybe by today if it's sunny enough, but certainly in the summertime. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to talk about the landscape design.
Right. Go. So as Bryce has already pointed out, it's a very generous landscape space, almost entirely located on a podium, so over top of suspended slab. Soil depths have been accommodated, so we're trying to minimize unnecessary drops in slabs or so forth, and creating more intensive landscape areas by mounding or berming up the soil to create appropriate soil depth for trees. We have endeavored to keep the landscape more informal to blend with the natural landscape surrounding. Use of like curvilinear pathways and so forth, and minimizing concrete like planter walls, which we are focused around the main driveway. Yeah, and so for accessibility, I mean, all of the main surface amenity features feature accessible paths of travel to BC, and yeah, our planting plan works with the fire smart, wildlife attractants, all the native like plant species that we see around Squamish.
Jen, if I could jump in here too, it might not be as evident here. We have the next slide showing in a more graphic stage, but there are lots of different aspects of outdoor landscape features on the site. So some are coming together, some larger open space grassed areas for wilder activities and so on, some more calmer areas to back up to. So quite a variety of landscaped areas. You can see with the internal lane, we've got some short-term drop-off spaces. Those would benefit the daycare. There's also a daycare drop-off on Ross Road. But you can see that the landscape area for the daycare is quite extensive on the interior crotch of the of building number 1.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, do you want to go to it, Jennifer?
Oh, sure.
Shows
so also just speak to sort of, there's definitely, as Bryce mentioned, a hierarchy of active and passive recreation opportunities. All of the ground floor units almost entirely have their own private limited common property, which would include a lawn, landscape areas, a low fence, which is an increased amenity for those ground floor units. The pool area is more of an active recreation, as well as the play structures. And then we have a centralized great lawn. There are individual recreation landscape amenities associated with each building. So each building does have an area that could be designated for community gardens, lawn, passive recreation space. So there's areas associated with each building, as well as common features like amenities that are central to all 3 buildings and all residents.
okay, next.
As I touched on, our planting focuses on focusing our soil volumes where they can provide more substantial and intensified landscape planting, keeping in mind that everything is on suspended slab. Plant species have all been selected considering fire smart, wildlife attractants, and native-like species that would require reduced irrigation over time. The perimeter of the development, where the parkade walls are exposed above grade, we have ample room on most sides, with the exception of the north, to utilize natural rock retaining in conformance with the development and subdivision control bylaw, and sort of soften and blend into the adjacent natural landscape.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. We'll open it up to the panel.
Thank you for the presentation. That's fantastic. So we'll have one opportunity for each panel member to ask questions for clarification. and then we'll have a second opportunity for each member to offer their comments. So maybe we'll start with the folks on screen. We've got Elle up there. Elle, did you have questions for the design team?
I think my one question would be just going back to, and this is my first design panel joining, so, you know, steer me in the right direction if I'm asking the wrong
welcome.
questions. Thank you. My question is about the connection to just like, all the edge conditions and the connection to the broader space around it. Like there's the school nearby, there's the forest with lots of pathways in it nearby. There's you know, the planned development just south of it. And I'm just couldn't quite see from the broader plan some of the thinking around how you'll be connecting into those neighborhoods.
Yeah, let's,
Did you want me to
sure.
tell that? I would just say that we're definitely with the two separate projects with the townhouse site to the south. Both landscape architecture teams and the architecture consultants are working on creating a seamless and clear transportation, pedestrian, otherwise, between those two sites. To the north, as Bryce mentioned, a development hasn't been proposed specifically for that site, but we have endeavored to keep the building set back as much as possible from the property lines to allow for that sort of natural landscape buffer and existing trail connections through the site.
Yeah, so we don't know yet what's going to happen to the north and what our dependability, Al, that's a very good question, is going to be. Certainly, depending on what happens there, there could be a really good opportunity for that. And then to the west, again, we don't know what kind of access, and this same will be true for the townhouse site, where that's governed by, I think, the Friends of the Forest or something. So that's something that could be worked out. We certainly have opportunities there, open space opportunities for all sorts of connections and links, depending on the approval of adjacent properties.
Thank you. Elle, do you have any additional or follow-up questions?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
All right. And Sarah, would you like to ask any questions of the design team?
Oh, I sure would.
Great.
Thanks for the presentation. And yeah, just piggybacking on what Elle asked, is that there is the historic Lillooet Cattle Trail that runs behind the Brackendale Farmers Institute, that you might want to consider some recognition of that or something, because it is, you know, one of the few historical things around here. And I think, so just to clarify, the main entrance to the daycare will be through the main entrance on Ross Road?
Yes, there are actually two entrances. One is through Ross Road. There's a second entrance on the internal lane where you can do short-term drop-off. And then there's a fence, a secure fence, so parents can drop kids off from there as well.
Yeah, there's it ramps up to that space, correct? Going through the outdoor amenity space?
To the secure outdoor daycare space, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Sarah, it's Emma from Polygon. There's also a direct access from the elevator from the parkade below for where we have parking for both patrons and employees.
And what about visitors?
And visitors as well.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask, so with the affordable housing units, is there BC housing funding coming for that? Only because it requires 5% of their units to be wheelchair accessible. And so I'm just trying to understand, because there wasn't any internal drawings of what's being proposed.
We're still in the process of figuring out who's going to be the final provider of the affordable homes, and we haven't figured out funding models as of yet. If we do use BC housing funding, we will be transferring 5% into the actual fully accessible units.
Okay. And then, you know, as BC Building Code now requires 20% adaptable, I'm wondering if you can speak to what size of units those adaptable units will be. Only because we just saw a project where they made them all studio spaces, and it's, you know, though technically they met the size requirements, the usability of those units is poor. So I'm curious.
Yeah, the expectation is that it'll be a variety of different unit types and sizes, recognizing the different needs for accessible units.
Okay. What's the width of the sidewalk that's going to be put in along Ross Road? It just seemed that it wasn't that wide. I mean, it may be just my interpretation. of the
I
drawing.
suggest that Squamish is going to be the one who tells us that size.
Okay.
I would have to double check on the offsite drawings. Matthews West is doing the overall servicing work for the sidewalk along Ross Road. It is a new sidewalk, but I'd have to confirm.
But it would be at least to minimum district standard as a part of the public road. Okay. Maybe we can dig up further details later, Sarah.
Yep. What is will the clubhouse have change rooms and showers?
Yes, they do.
And do you have any non-gendered options available?
We will have universal access universal access washrooms.
Do those have a shower in them?
At this time, they do not know. We have 2 different change rooms options.
Right. Okay. And is I was trying to understand the access, the entrance into the clubhouse. So there is an internal access from building 3 to the clubhouse?
Yeah, there'll be direct elevator access down from building 3 and the secondary lobby building 3 into the clubhouse.
Right. And then the condo, you know, anybody who's in the townhouses will then come through the entrance off of Ross Road?
No, there is, you'll see they generally there's an internal connection, a landscape connection from the north end of the townhouse project into very close to where the amenity space is. That'll be a connection here. If I can just.
Let me just pull that up. Hang on.
Let's just let me show it again. Anyways, yeah, so there's a very convenient pedestrian connection from the townhouses almost directly to the amenity area.
Oh, right. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. So it's the pathway that runs perpendicular to Ross Road going west, basically.
That's correct.
That's the entrance there. Okay. And do you know what the total number of units are for the 3 combined buildings?
Yeah, it's in the development permit application shown and for each building.
It is.
I didn't see those numbers.
It's there.
307.
Okay. And so there is visitor parking in the underground parking that's going to be included as well.
Correct.
And you're meeting the minimum requirements of accessible parking down there. Are the 2 above ground accessible parking spots considered to be visitor parking, or are they, like, if somebody has an overheight van, they can't go into the underground, like myself?
Yeah, they'll likely be signed to be shorter term parking, and I assume that there can be some accommodation for people who might need a longer term access to it, but generally it's meant to be shorter term access.
Okay.
And the parkade is being designed such that it will be overheight to allow for vans and handicap vans and so on.
Right. Is it 8'4"? That's how
You know
tall
what,
my
Sarah,
van is.
it's going to meet the requirements. Trust
All
us.
right. And can you tell me what the surfacing of the pathways is throughout the site?
Yeah.
For the most part, we are showing it as poured in place, like room finish concrete, just because we found in our experience that it's easier to make subtle grade changes, such as meeting curb drops and so forth. It's much easier than doing precast pavers.
Great. Okay,
And then we have
that's
precast pavers are for the terraces.
the terraces of each unit.
Yes.
Great. Oh, finally, there was some mention that there will be some, I don't know if they're adaptable or accessible units that will be at grade and be able to access their patios. Are those going to be sliding glass doors, or like, I'm just wondering, is there a threshold to get out onto those patios?
We will definitely ensure that any accessible units meet all of the requirements of accessible units, including access to outdoor spaces.
Right. So all of the requirements from what, for what standards? Right. BC housing, BC building code doesn't actually have accessible standards for units. They're adaptable standards. So CSA.
Yeah, well, Sarah, trust us, we'll definitely meet the necessary requirements.
I wonder if this could be a comment in the next round that we could leave the Bryan and the design team with, Sarah, to
Sure.
ensure that that's the case. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. So that's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Celso, the last online attendee. Questions? And remember, we'll have a second opportunity where we'll provide comments. This is just for the clarifying questions.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I have a overall question to Bryan, actually. Is this a site DP, and is there going to be a detailed DP at a later date?
No, this development permit is covering the form and character of the buildings as well as the site plan generally. So all of these buildings are being considered under this one permit. If you could talk into the mic a little bit louder, it's a bit hard to hear you.
Sorry, I'm gonna see if my microphone is low here. I'm having a little problem commenting on this project. First of all, I'm not sure if I downloaded the wrong documents. I used the link on the minutes, but I got completely different drawings than the ones that were presented by the design team. And I don't have any statistics. I don't have floor plans. I don't have below grade parking plans. I don't have civil. I don't have a sustainability strategy. I can't see any storm management strategy. I'm having a hard time commenting overall. So the question only I'm gonna have right now is based on, and please don't take this personal, but through a DP application, state that the DP and the city should trust the design team that things are going to be done right. It's a little awkward to me. My apologies for the blunt comment. So it was stated that the site is very generous, which I agree. So my question is, why there was a choice to have about 40 feet between building, I think it's 1 and 2, the ones in the north, and a very narrow, compared to the site, about 50 feet. And I'm scaling this, but it's about that between the two buildings facing the main street.
Off the street, I don't have the measurements, but I think it's between 70 and 80 feet. And between buildings 1 and 2, it's closer to the narrowest point is 50 feet, but you can see it's actually a triangular site, so they don't face each other face on, that they angle, which increases the opening as you go further to the north.
I copied your, sorry, Bryan and people, just for the subsequent question. I copied your graphic scale and paste in between the buildings, and that's what I've got. But I trust you.
And is that it? So that's all your questions?
Yeah, for this
Okay.
this application, these are the questions.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go around to the members in the room. We'll start with Andrew. Questions for the design team.
Your mic on?
From an arts context, I don't have any questions at this time.
Super, thank you. Luke, questions?
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. My questions would be I know on the north property line, there's a significant retaining wall there, or it's the parquet that's projecting out. In many places that you note them as rock stack, I was just wondering what the treatment in those areas where it is appearing to be concrete, how are you going to, what's the strategy for mitigating that with whatever's proposed to the north?
We're very close to the north property line. And so what we've proposed is where we have the space available to do the 1.2 meters with the 1.2 meter setback between terraces. And for the most part, the site to the north is still remaining forested, as is the lot to the west. So
yeah, we'll have a lot of landscape screening along that parkade wall to try to hide it. To the right, like if you're looking at the north property line, the right is the church that remains forested, but to the left there will be a future development there. And then once that is, designed, we'll make sure that those marry up as well.
Yeah, and with the grading, the slope of the grade, for building one at the northeast section, we're actually just slightly a little bit below grade. So it's only as you get further west with building two that you get to have some of the parkade having some exposure.
Okay. I wasn't able to see a level 1 general plan of architecturally. I was just wondering what the waste storage strategy is, or where the rooms are, how big they are, and what the strategy is for picking up and dropping off.
In the parkade at the bottom of the ramp on the north side, we have 3 different waste storage rooms for each different use type. We have the affordable rentals, market rentals, and the daycare. So there'll be 3 different. They all meet district standards. And then on the south side, we'll also have a waste room just at the front of the parkade where the market condos will have access.
Like attached and adjacent to the road, like the main road, or?
Yes, yeah.
Or you go, so you go down the ramp and then you have to pull them out.
Yeah.
Yes, and certainly for buildings 1 and 2, it comes up into the internal laneway, and then building 3, it comes up adjacent to the street. Question to you, Bryan, did the panel get access to our full development permit application drawings?
Not the complete set because it was too large. It was our district computers don't handle extremely large file types well. So I had to do a pared down version given that the comments are meant to be on form and character and site layout. Okay. So the parkade plans probably didn't make it onto those.
Okay.
I can confirm that the panel, or I didn't receive any floor plans for the apartment buildings at all. I'll make a comment afterwards, but it's fine. The question would be then, has the project team reached out to GFL to confirm that that strategy is acceptable?
Yes, yeah, we have reached out to them and they provided their comments on all 3 of the garbage rooms.
Okay, thank you. Given this is like quite a large project with 3 buildings, like encompassing on top of 1 parkade, I see that the 2 entries for the 2 buildings, the market and the affordable rental, are all accessed from the main road. It's very easy to see that sense of arrival and the entry. What was the strategy for wayfinding across the site, and also like bringing people into that rear building?
You'll see with the to some extent, we haven't done a detailed design of it, but there'll be entry monuments for the whole project from Ross Road leading in. So it'll also indicate the building 3. You access that from the internal road.
Okay. Like monuments is in like kind of like monolith with a sign.
And granite and so on.
And we'll have to include wayfinding that shows that if you're going to be accessing the market rental, that there's you have to come and take in that top road over the podium.
Okay. I guess it's another one with the parking not being there, but what's the bike storage strategy for like the Class A spaces? And
I don't think anybody in Squamish rides bikes, do they?
yeah, I know it's not like we've all got 5 bikes.
We have lots. I could get you the numbers, and it was actually part of the development permit application. Lots of bike parking storage space in the parkade.
Yeah, a bunch of different rooms dispersed throughout the parkade. And then for the market condos and some of the market rentals, they'll also have one bike storage within their home if it allows it in the den.
Okay, 1 for 1 sort of thing.
Yeah. So two per.
Yeah, sorry, 2 per. Yeah.
2 per home, but sometimes they'll have 1 in the home and 1 down in the parkade.
Okay. And are there any bike workshop or end of trip facilities proposed?
Yes, the bike rooms, we find that the bike rooms work really well when you have a variety of spaces. So different kinds of spaces for both the bike lockers. People have different opportunities. They might want to store some wet gear and other kinds of things there. Plus some opportunities to do some bike maintenance down in some of the bike rooms as well.
There'll be end of trip facilities for the commercial component for the daycare staff.
Yep. The finishes for this is very specific. The finishes for the post, I know, are they proposed to be fiber cement panel clad, or are they going to be left exposed wood?
They'll be clad.
Okay.
Clad. And the reason for that is that we've done in previous designs where you have finished wood, put on timber or something else, which is great. But through construction, trying to keep it so it's not all dinged up and looks bad. Sometimes we end up wrapping it anyways, just because of construction issues.
We're limited on combustible materials because of our wildfire adjacency.
Yeah. More in the full plans. Okay, yeah, patios and privacy. I was wondering, given that there are several at-grade patios that are facing into this central area, what strategies are being made for privacy to those units?
There's not visual privacy. There'll be low walls to give people a sense of this is your private area. If you have a small dog or something, or a toddler or something, could be stayed within that. But visually, there will be visual access, so there's not a lack of privacy. And there'll also be landscaping, hedging, separating the patio space with the outdoor common areas.
Okay.
I'll just also note, it's a bit of a security and maintenance issue if we were to create solid barriers around everyone's personal ground level landscape space. So having just a low fence and landscaping is what we found to be the best solution.
Makes sense. I know there's a substation proposed on the northeast of the site. Obviously, there's probably highly unlikely there's detail from BC Hydro right now for that, but do you have any understanding of what that might be? Is it above grade, below grade?
It's an above grade substation.
Above grade substation. Okay. And the mechanical strategy for exit ventilating the parkade, will that be through these retaining walls where it sticks out of the ground where it's like the grade's dropping, or are you proposing kind of like dog houses?
That's not been finalized, but we find where we can get some horizontal venting out or intake, that works really well. Recognizing snow buildup, so we have to make sure that's not impacted. But these are larger parkades, so it's likely they're going to have to do some dog houses to ensure sufficient ventilation, circulation.
Great, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. And over to Michael now.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I kind of wanted to go back to the north property line. Site section B1 kind of shows an elevation difference of over 4 meters, which is a bit different when the site plan says, but I'm just curious, there's not a lot of room to screen that wall to that north property. And so when you say we'll marry the site to what's coming, I'm just curious how you propose you could do that.
It's a good question. And so certainly with the auto stoppers, it's true that cycles to the they're higher. So the site's lower there. So there's a good chance that some of the air particles.
Sorry, your microphone's not on. It's hard to hear you.
Now it is. Okay. Yeah. So with hard and soft landscaping, we'll deal with that as much as we can. But, and I'm saying we also recognize that with development of the north site, especially the northwest site, that's likely to be 4 or 6 stories, perhaps with retail, and that will have a parkade as well. And so because that's the lowest part of their site, they'll have a parkade that may stick out of the ground. So we can work together to deal with those 2 interfaces.
Is there any opportunity to step down that north side of the building? I'm just thinking, they might also have a perimeter pathway, and then you end up with walking through a canyon that might feel very unsafe. So
we absolutely can. We typically slope the top lid, but we can also drop the ceiling, the lid of the parkade against the north property line, so it's a little bit lower and have a better interface.
Okay. You mentioned the end of trip facilities. I'm wondering if there's also a bike wash station proposed, like an outdoor bike gear wash station proposed anywhere?
We've been looking at it, and if we think that that's going to be something helpful, we most definitely will include one on the podium.
Yeah, as a bike rider in Whistler, I think an outdoor bike wash is great, so I encourage that.
Was there any consideration given to snow removal and clearing and where that snow might go?
Yeah, we know that it's not as big an issue, John will tell you, as Whistler. Whistler, that's a big factor. Squamish, a little less so. We have space within. We haven't dedicated snow storage areas. The expectations is that when snow clearing is done, there will be a vehicle, a truck, to take the snow away whenever clearing is done.
Okay.
So it might be there for an hour or 2 in a day, but not multiple days.
What was it looked at all in the site landscape of where that could be? I just know that snow removal can be quite expensive, especially if you're now trucking it away as opposed to piling it.
Sure. Again, the expectation is that it won't stay for multiple days. It's taken away that day.
Jennifer had some ideas on that.
Oh, I was just going to say, basically all of our landscape areas, with the exception of those that have planter curb wall right against the main driveway, could easily be used. There's some lawn space. There's, planting areas that could easily be used for short or longer term snow storage.
Okay. I couldn't tell, but it might be provided. Is there any tool storage for the outdoor gardening agricultural aspects?
We haven't, we didn't specify anything, but definitely when we get into the detailed design for the community garden areas, we can definitely designate some area for that if that's required. We have done that in other projects.
Okay. And has a tenant or an operator been identified for the daycare yet?
We're talking to a few operators, but we haven't finalized anything yet.
Okay. So assuming that outdoor play equipment will be adjusted to suit the age groups that the owner operator.
Yeah, we're showing it as conceptual at this point, just for space, but the actual design of the outdoor space will be up to the provider.
Okay. And then like the western perimeter of the site and kind of to the south as well, there's a landscape hatch that isn't in the legend. I'm just curious what the treatment is for the landscape around the perimeter.
Oh, just along the west property line there?
West and south, it kind of looks like a.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not showing in legend, but anyway, so what we have proposed is like a terrasol, low mow hydroseed mix that can be naturalized. It can be mown. It can be left to naturalize as needed, but just to kind of blend more, and then not require irrigation as sod lawns would.
Was a sunshade analysis done at all that kind of included the mature forest as a shade source to the site?
No, we haven't.
We typically would just speak, whoever is doing the hydroseeding, we would specify sun mixes, shade mixes, where those areas would be with the seed providers.
Can you just speak to what elements of the landscape design are particularly, Squamish related or kind of place this building in its location and connect it with its siting?
Well, in terms of the planting, it's all native and native-like species, encouraging pollinator plants. We do have a lot of restrictions when it comes to wildlife attractants and fire smart. In terms of anything that's more sort of indigenous or culturally related to Squamish, that hasn't really been determined for this site yet in terms of public art or anything like that. Hasn't been discussed at this point.
Yeah. Thanks. That's all my questions.
Thanks, Michael. So we'll move into the opportunity for panel members to make comments now, and I'll try to summarize those as we go to be able to offer a list of comments at the end. And maybe we'll just go in reverse order, Michael. Minute. Okay. We'll go. Well, maybe we'll start in the room this time, and perhaps we'll start with Andrew for comments for the project.
I guess internal comment, I think it was particularly tricky. Some of the relative information was left out of the package that we had received. So I think it was particularly tricky to assess the project beforehand. I don't think that I will have comments that my colleagues won't otherwise touch on in their respective disciplines. So from our perspective, I don't have any comments.
Okay, thank you. Luke, are you ready with comments? Oh boy, okay. I wonder if maybe we'll just take a 2-minute recess and let the panel members think through comments, and then we'll come back if that's the case. I don't want to put everybody on the spot here. We'll take 90 seconds and then we'll come back. I got the timer on.
John, I think I'm good.
Okay, well then, Luke, take it away with your comments.
Thanks, just in the interest of time. Yeah, so thank you very much for the presentation. I acknowledge that there's definitely a lot of work that's gone into the 3 buildings to get it to the point they are today, and we really appreciate that. Yeah, my first point would be a point to staff, just that, yes, we acknowledge that most of our comments are to do with form and character. However, as an architect AIBC myself, we do need to review the main floor plans, not necessarily comment on the layouts, but so we can understand the greater picture. So if we could ensure that those are provided, that would be great, including the garage and the parking plans and the level 1 plans are especially most important. My initial comments would be there's the retaining walls to the north. I'm a bit concerned that they are approximately like 4 meters tall. I note that there is a detail in there in the landscape package for stepping them back with the rock stack, but given that proximity to the property line, I think it might be more worthwhile considering how that edge can be massaged to be less impactful, given that, yes, it is forested right now, but we don't know what might be there in the future. I apologize, I do not know what the impact that would have on your parkade layout, given that we don't have it. So hopefully you can work with the team to resolve that. I do think that Michael's suggestion to work with the grades is probably an effective one. I think what the project's done to the southwest is done a very good job of working with the 6-story typical, assuming wood frame typology, to then step down and create that opened area for the amenity. Potentially you could use a similar strategy on that northwest corner to help it fit more with its context and just the general grading. to keep on landscape. Yeah, I think the patios are generally looking, they're a nice generous size. I do feel like the ones that are facing into the courtyard could benefit from maybe a little bit of natural softscape screening, not necessarily meaning a 8-foot high cedar fence, but there's something that's soft and fits with the character of the neighborhood would work well. I support, and I think it's great to see so many trees proposed on a plan like this, but assuming that the majority of that base is parkade, I'm assuming that they're all on a suspended slab. Therefore, I think it's very important that you consider that the tree soil planting depth that's required on those, especially in those areas where that seem to be in quite close proximity to the drive aisle and also the sidewalk, whether or not those are localized depressions to achieve that depth. But it would be I'd really like to see those actually make their way into the project and not have to be edited out at a later date. The wayfinding, I would see as being particularly important, especially with the branding of like the actual neighborhood itself. Allowing people to sort of feel like they're more invited into this center, rather than arriving at site and feel the people who are actually in the affordable rental building being like harbored away at the back. It'd be nice that they actually feel like they've got a sense of arrival and a sense of community is fostered there. I completely understand, given the nature of an affordable rental building and a market rental building, the finishes of the building, and also the fact that it's a 6-story wood frame construction, therefore it's non-combustible. However, it would be nice to see a couple of higher quality accents. So I applaud the use of the stone and the rock at the lower levels. It would be really nice to try and see some of those posts expressed as heavy timbers with a char rating, if it's possible, just because I think it really helps to elevate something that's, especially given that they are under cover, and I think the maintenance of them would be relatively low in that instance. Then the next ones are more about detail design in a way. I think that the electrical substation is actually quite important. It's facing that northeast corner, and there would be some units overlooking it. Given that we don't know the detail of it, I hope staff can work through to generate something that's of the similar character to the building. And then also the placement of the mechanical dog houses should all be moved, ensure that they're away from any residential private space, and hopefully located in more of a less obvious and a more subtle area, is what I'm trying to say. And that is all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Mike, are you feeling ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I do like the way you've created a bunch of different spaces for people to use, and the mounding, I think, adds a good element. There's lots of planting, which is good. I think the perimeter treatment, particularly around the west and south, could be, well, I guess more the west. I think a sun shade analysis, considering the shade that the existing forest is going to provide, is going to have grass struggle to grow there. And I think there could be some benefit to use that space to blend into the forest with more shade tolerant native shrub plantings, and just not have to worry about maintaining a lawn in that space. I think also, you mentioned about the existing trails in connection to the school, and I think that needs to really be thought out, and maybe there needs to be some better connections or more connections to the school site or existing trails. You have a large sort of a grand staircase that comes down, but it feels like it just sort of ends in a I feel like there could be more there potentially. I think an outdoor bike wash and gear wash stations would be well received for people using the site here. I think tool storage also is something that needs to be considered if you are going to have people gardening on the site. And I think, yeah, Luke already mentioned the north property line, so I won't discuss that again. But I think in the layout of the bike racks on this site, my understanding is those inverted U racks, you can fit 2 bikes per inverted U, but the way it's shown on the drawings, they're so close they wouldn't allow the second bike, and that the inverted U would also be so you could lock your frame to it. So it might just be a a CAD block issue, but just to relook at the layout of the bike racks. So my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We're just appear to be confirming if we have the online attendees still with us. Are they? Okay, so if we can't see you in the room, folks, but if you're with us, perhaps we'll have Celso offer comments.
Can I skip? I just sent a message. If I could get a reply before my comments, please.
Sure. Well, we're waiting for that. Sarah, would you like to offer your comments to the design team?
Sure. Thanks for the presentation. I just want to recommend that your adaptable units are spread throughout different sized units. So, people do have families with disabilities, and not just to make them studios or 1-bedrooms. And similarly, if there is a requirement for fully accessible units, that those too would be spread throughout different types of units. I would encourage you to have the picnic tables that are located in the community garden areas have the extended top, that be wheelchair accessible. You're going to have people coming with strollers and walkers, etc. There's enough space around those tables to accommodate that. The community garden storage areas should be accessible as well. I would encourage you to utilize the CSA B652 for the accessible dwellings, for if you do have a requirement for that. You should have saw cut concrete for your pathways. You might want to consider inclusive change room facility that has full private change room parts in it, as well as an adult size change table or plinth in one of those units for people to change on. I think that you should add some reference to the historic Lillooet Cattle Trail that's going through, that site, either with your signage or public art. I think that it's an important piece of our history, and ensure that the bike room is able to accommodate adaptive mountain bikes, so they're a bit wider, that you're going to have plugins in there for the charging, etc. And yes, definitely outdoor bike wash station is going to be essential. And that's my main comments. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments, Sarah. We'll move to Elle with comments.
Great, thanks for the presentation. My audio cut out a bit in the beginning of all the comments, so apologies if any of these are repetitious. I think just a couple things. One, just with the pool area and the outdoor amenity space, just considering the materials being used, because you see so many of those spaces being filled up with moss and needles and leaves and quickly not becoming as attractive as they are on the lovely renderings. So I just take that into strong consideration. As well, I didn't see any place for dogs. And while I know it's surrounded by forest, people will inevitably use those main lawns for their pets. So I would just make a choice on whether or not you want to invite people to do that and encourage it, or encourage them to have a separate space for that. Especially here in Squamish, we all have them. And then the last one is just again about that connection to the rest of the neighborhood. I think being one of the first developments in that area, you're setting the stage for what it's going to feel like there, having a lot of new residents in this area. And I know it feels like a forest that is just sitting there ready to be developed, but it's really well used among the community. Kids coming from the school, families walking home, people walking their dogs, using it a lot on the weekends. So again, it's about, I think, just choosing if you're inviting people in from there who might not even be residents, and are they allowed to cut through? Is that obvious for them that they can? Or if you don't want them to be cutting through, just like making, like, what kind of choices are you making there? I think with your landscape design about how you're connecting with the neighborhood around and the trails that currently exist. And I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Elle. And Celso, have you received a response to your question?
No, I have not. I sent actually to two people. No, I don't know if you guys didn't get it, but anyways, I want to apologize for the panel and to the design team, but due to the lack of information on this application, I don't think I'm prepared to provide a responsible, respectful, and professional commentary to this application. I echoed a lot of the comments by the other panelists, but I know how much work it goes into this application and getting a date to be reviewed, but I'm going to have to apologize and not comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Celso, and I'm sure the minutes will reflect that.
I've got one more comment that I forgot to make about the species selection. So I think there was just, there's a few species that are not native and have an invasive tendency, and I've seen them start to become invasive here. So I'll just flag those for your consideration. The Acer genella, the Gladitia triacanthos, unless it's the seedless variety, the Berberis thunbergii, and the Cornus alba.
Okay, thanks for that. Before we shut it down, are there any additional comments from panel members?
I'd like to comment if I could.
Oh, hello, Kim, please.
Hi, my apologies for arriving late, and I missed the presentation, so I apologize for that. I just, knowing that area, my son lives pretty close to it. It is a big insertion of density into the area, and the buildings, while quite competent, are monotonous in the massing. They're all 6 stories. I don't know if there's any opportunity to vary your massing a little bit. I know it's also late in the day for a comment like that, but I find, you're going to have a lot of, it's been brought up before, there's not light studies that have been shown to us. There's going to be a lot of shadowing going on, and I'm wondering if you could maintain your density, but possibly vary your heights so you allow a little bit more opportunities for light into the site. That's the main comment I have, and it's a fairly general one and maybe too late at this point, but I would like to see a little, and I would say again, you're extremely competent architecture firm, and you do this all the time, and the buildings are good, but again, they don't really have a character like that's my place and that's where I live. And if there could be a little bit less repetition, a little bit more character, you've done a little bit with color, I see, but it would be nice, I think, if it had just more character. Squamish has got a lot of that, and this is a insertion, it seems to me, of a pretty strong formula, but not enough attention to variation and light, if that's possible at this point. That's my main comment, because I do agree that we don't have plans. The site plan, you can kind of get it, but it's hard to get a lot out of it, particularly since I missed the presentation, so I apologize again for that. But yeah, that's my comments.
Thank you, Kim. So maybe I'll try and give a quick summary of the comments that I heard. And in that way, that can create the list that we offer to the project, and then we'll make our motion at that point. So, and please, as I go through this list, make sure you let me know what I've been missing. I think there were quite a few comments on the landscape topic. So particularly there were discussion around and comments on the perimeter treatment, looking at that north property line and the significant grade changes, recommendation that some new approaches are investigated there. Then there were, I didn't write them down, but Michael offered 5 specific plants that have been spec'd that are not native and or have some invasive tendencies. So recommendation to look at those and perhaps source some alternatives. The suggestion to maybe sensitively use vegetation for additional screening between patios, recommendation that really ensuring adequate and generous soil depth for plantings, including the trees, recognizing they're all on the suspended slab. Suggestion to ensure, that the location and screening for the electrical substation and the parkade ventilation is done with sensitivity and thought. Suggestion for wayfinding through the site, ensuring that the site feels welcoming to folks coming in. And with the gardening, I guess this is sort of moving into the conversations around the amenity space. So if we consider gardening part of that, so if there's going to be opportunities for residents to garden on the site, there should be some tool storage such as a shed provided. Thinking about the bike racks, ensuring that there's adequate space for the bikes. With the outdoor furniture, particularly the picnic tables, ensure that they are accessible, considering that many of the folks using the site and living on the site may have wheelchairs, walkers, strollers, and other. With the pathways, recommendation for saw cut concrete. With the amenity space, recommendation for gender inclusive change rooms and adult sized change tables to ensure that they can be used by all residents. For the landscape, again, suggestion for dedicated outdoor space for dogs. On the placemaking side, there were some, we have a recommendation that the site take maybe a more holistic approach to connections and integration with the existing trail network. And a suggestion around really thinking about what makes this a Squamish project, what's unique about this project for where it's being proposed. And then also thinking about the 3 buildings. Is there an opportunity to make each of those buildings really have a unique character? And then also a comment on the massing and suggestion that perhaps the heights can be broken down with some stepping and provide a little bit more variation in that way. Lastly, and importantly, well, not quite lastly, so another comment on the outdoor space, outdoor bike wash. And then I think there's a really interesting on that placemaking piece suggestion to look at what opportunities might exist to recognize and link in with the historic Lillooet Cattle Trail. On the accessibility, ensure that there's the thresholds, the clearance for outdoor space, and particularly for the accessible units, that is addressed. That the adaptable units are created across the unit mix, that there's no concentration of adaptable units within the studios, but that they represent the full unit mix in the building. And reference to the CSA standard that should be referenced when looking at the accessibility standards. And then I'd leave us with a comment that is not so much for the applicant team, but really for the District of Squamish, that, and I think this has come up frequently with our projects, that there perhaps needs to be some clarification on what the level of information that's provided in the ADP packages, that should be standardized, and that if there's a technical issue with sharing files, drawing packages, engineering drawings, and so on with the panel members, that's something that the District of Squamish needs to resolve so that the panel members can receive the information they need to provide the input that we've been tasked with providing. So I think we'd like to see the district standardize, clarify what information that needs to be provided to the panel, and resolve technical issues so that it can be done. Did I miss any important recommendations?
There was the suggestion for the sun shade analysis to determine appropriateness for species and amenity.
I wrote that down and skipped over it. So that's a great recommendation. So looking particularly along the west property line, confirm that there's adequate sunshine for grass cover, and maybe look at a more shade tolerant ground cover in that area. Okay.
John, I would just add that the CSA standards to be followed is the B653 for accessible dwellings. Is my recommendation.
That is CSA standard B653 is in the minutes. I can see it.
Sorry,
in real time.
I said B653. It's B652.
Okay, corrected. It's in the minutes. B652. Okay, so at this point, I think we would move to our recommendation. We are provided with 4 different recommendations. Could I have a panel member move one of the recommendations?
Sure. Is there an opportunity for the applicants to just respond?
No. No, you can talk to we'll wait and see what we move here, but then I think the next step would be typically to work with staff to address these comments. You will, I believe, uniquely in this meeting, you'll be giving us another presentation in about a minute or two. So you probably could sneak some comments back in there.
Okay, so I can't say, I think these are all really good comments. And I think they're all,
You just can't do.
I can't say that.
Carry on, please.
I think they're all definitely things that we can incorporate in working with staff. Kim, to your point about the changing the massing of the building, that's going to be a little bit harder, but I know that there are ways that we can increase the variety and scale and so on. And I don't know if you know that we designed the 232 unit seniors building in downtown nearby, and we did a lot more coloration, variation, and so on too. Have to see what our client. Good comments.
So perhaps, well, let's see what motion the panel goes with here out of our 4 options. And then I think, typically the next step would be there's really that opportunity to work with the planner to think through the recommendations and see how they can be incorporated. So back to our motion.
John, for the new members, it might be good to just walk through the motions with them. Otherwise, I'll recommend one now.
I will. Okay, so thank you for that reminder. Okay, thanks, Luke, for that recommendation. So typically we're provided with 4 options. One is that the panel supports the project as presented and does not need to see the project again. The second is that the panel supports the project as presented and would like the applicant to work with District of Squamish staff to resolve the panel's recommendations. The third is that the panel supports the project, would have the applicant work with staff to resolve recommendations, and then bring the project back and present the revised project to the panel. And then the last is that the panel does not support the project, and we would at that point need to list the reasons why we don't support it. So those are our 4 options.
I would like to make a motion for B, that we support the project as presented and to work with staff to resolve the comments.
Thanks, Luke. And would someone second that? Got Andrew as a seconder. Could I see who is in support of that motion? It looks like we've got almost unanimous support. Or anybody opposed to that motion? One opposed. Okay. So that means that the panel recommends that they support the project as presented, would like the applicant to work with staff to resolve the panel's recommendations. All right. We're going to now move into the next project. Bryan, would you like to introduce this one again?
I will give an extremely brief introduction. This development permit application is just south of the project you just reviewed. This time it is a forming character development permit for 180 townhomes. This parcel is known as Parcel F. And again, it is to be reviewed against Development Permit Area 3. With that, I'll pass it to the architect team.
From previous presentations. And we've got Jessica from Vanderzam Landscape Architects here to present this. Okay. Bryan, this mechanism for moving it forward, there we go. So you saw the location, we're immediately south of where the townhouse, where the apartment site was. Everything else has not changed. So this is a large townhouse site, 180 townhouses, and this is what's decreed for the site. So we have to find different opportunities for the site. We looked at all sorts of different orientations for the townhouses, how they can be located east-west. You can see that most of the roads are north-south. And we realized that the site configuration works really well to have the north-south orientation for most of the townhouses. It means that all of the townhouses get some sun in the morning and some sun in the afternoon, and it provides nice looping. Also, because of the depth of the site, we get a really great intermediate landscape area within all of the townhouses. So I'm clicking here, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
More on the PDF.
There we go. So there's a principal entrance off Ross Road, and within that is an internal looping road. So it's a little bit like a very small community with block size looping around. And it means that there are no dead ends, nobody gets stuck. You can see at the very northwest corner is one of the roads leads to pedestrian connection to the apartment site to the north and the amenity space. So a variety of townhouses. The ones along Ross Road are, because of floodplain, slightly above the elevation of Ross Road. So they have front porches with a number of stairs coming down to a front yard with garden gates and very much oriented to the street. The central townhouses all have their front doors to the internal street. And you'll see that with the middle townhouses, they also have access to the outdoor areas. This is at the north end of the site. Again, the different blocks, different common areas in between clusters of townhouses. And you can see from the lower right-hand corner, the connection that goes through to the amenity space. So we took inspiration from a little bit more of a, not rural vernacular, but sort of sophisticated rural vernacular, pitched roofs, vertical siding, various kinds of siding, and porches and other kinds of things. Here are more. One of the things you'll see with the presentation, and hopefully you saw enough information ahead of time, is that we have lots of color here. So Kim should be a little bit more pleased, I hope, that there's lots of coloration and so on. It's not evident, but we have what we call 4 different color palettes. And within each color palette, there is variation even within that. We did take a look early on at having each block, each cluster of buildings, one color scheme, and then the next one have a different one, and the third one have a different one. And working with Squamish Planning, the request was to provide greater variety even within every block. And so we've done that. You can see here the top image is on Ross Road, and it shows the garden gates and entrance to a front yard, entrance back up to a few steps up to the front doors. So very welcoming, very street friendly. On the other side of that block, because of the grading, we have the internal roadway and access to garages from that side. Here's another example of townhouses. This happens to be adjacent to the principal entrance, showing street orientation. This happens to be in the internal outdoor amenity area, again, with pathways and Jessica's going to explain a lot more about the landscaping and how that works. But pathways from common outdoor areas to more private yards into individual suites. This shows you color schemes, a variety of color schemes, cementitious materials, roofs over porches, a variety of colors and orientations of materials. It also shows strong roofscapes with the gable roofs throughout the site. Here's another example of 2, 3 more different, what we would call color schemes for each block. There'd be consistency within each block, but lots of color schemes within each of those blocks. This shows you the orientation, how we've allocated the different color schemes. So there is variety. Whenever you're walking along, you're never going to see 2 blocks that are identical to each other as you're walking down the street. An interesting thing is that, as you would know, we have different kinds of townhouses, 3-story townhouses. Sometimes they're tandem parking, doesn't work quite as well. It does allow for 2 spaces. In this case, we have, they all have side-by-side parking. So every townhouse has side-by-side at least 2 parking spaces. And some of them you can see from the plans that you would have had that they have 3 parking spaces. Second floor is living space, very open, living, dining, kitchen, powder rooms and so on, a little bit of a work area, and then 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms on the upper floor. In some cases, this would be along internal roads and so on. We have access to a small entry area to our main entry area at grade, with a room at grade, and then up to a 2nd level and then a 3rd level. This is an example of townhouses that have up to 3 vehicle parking spaces. The expectation is that there will be a lot of storage of toys. We need only 2 parking spaces per. We have all the visitor spaces outside. So this could be for kayaks, for bikes, for all sorts of different kinds of things. In all cases, we have oversized garages so that if people have tulies on top or other kinds of things, they've got extra height, or even hanging things from the ceiling of the garage to provide extra storage. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jessica.
Thank you. Okay, well, I feel like I have the benefit of just listening to the last presentation, so I'm going to tell you what you wanted, what you want to know about this one. We have, I'm first going to show you some of our precedents. So these are some of the images that really inspired the design and informed some of our choices along the way. So you can see we really love that like street orientation along Ross Road. We want to have lots of community spaces, so community gardens, play spaces, sensory areas, lots of space for everyone to play and gather and build on that community. On this slide, you can see the overall of the development. You can see that we have a generous amenity area running through the spine of the development, as well as lots of connections. I'll skip over to that. So here I'm just really highlighting all of the pedestrian connections. We know that Squamish, and particularly this area, is a really active community. There's lots of hiking and biking trails that are accessible to the development. So we've provided lots of different opportunities to move from the development into the neighborhood and to provide sort of an active lifestyle, easily accessible from your home. This is on the south end of the development. This is one of the amenity areas that we have created. I will point out, particularly for Sarah, but for everyone, all of these amenity spaces do have accessible pathways. They're 1.5 meters wide. They're saw-cut concrete. So all of this space is accessible. In this end, we've focused on the southern end on a really community building space. We have some seating and gathering areas there. And then we have a playground central to that area that is meant for an older age group, sort of the 5 to 12 age group. And then moving to the north from there, or to the left of your screen, we have a community garden space That community garden space is going to have accessible garden spaces so that everyone can participate in gardening and community activities. And then just north of that, we have a shelter with some picnic tables. And again, some of the tables will have a shortened seat area so that we can wheel wheelchairs or strollers or other devices right up to the table and participate in whatever community activities we have going on there. This is the area to the north of the drive aisle. Again, the central amenity runs through that spine of the development. As you come in along the main road, we have a pedestrian entrance there. And as you connect into that central amenity, we have provided things like a bike fixing station. We also have the community mailbox there and just some open space for gathering, talking about your latest bike ride, where you've been, fixing things. As you move through to the north or the left through that amenity space, we have a few different sensory gardens, so lots of colors and smells. And then we also have another play area on the left-hand side where the number 2 is. That is a little tot play area. And then this is the area that's on the north of the development. And this is sort of showing everyone the connection to the condo development that we just reviewed. On where number 1 is, so bottom left or northwest, that connection is at grade and accessible through the development and into the amenity building on the condo site. So that's where we expect that the majority of the townhome residents will be accessing the amenity space. There is another connection to that development on the northeast corner. We've got a few stairs there, but that's another option for connection through the development. Throughout the whole space, there are little pockets of seating, spaces where the landscape pavement widens out to allow people to stop and gather and chat, maybe sit and rest. That continues throughout the entire development. This is just a quick little visual of our planting palette. You can see we've got some yellow circles where we're showing native plants, and then we have some green circles where we're showing plants that are pollinator friendly. With all of the plant material, we have aimed for as much native or adaptive species as we can. We've considered the Fire Smart recommendations, the wildlife deterrent recommendations. So that'll come through with all of the plant material. This is just sort of a little overview of our considerations and the recommendations for Fire Smart. So we have followed these recommendations and all of the plant choices and planting locations throughout the townhome development.
That's it.
And that's it.
We can go back a bit.
I can go back, yeah.
Right.
I think I can.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'd like to add 2 more points. Within the site, you can see that the road is not just a straight road, it meanders a little bit, which we've done that so that a lot of the townhouses have a throat in front of their garage that they can park another vehicle on it as well. And at the very north end, those townhouses, the 3 stories, the garage is at the internal lane level. The second floor actually goes out onto grade against where the apartment building is north of it, so that it softens the impact. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. So we'll have the same format. There'll be an opportunity for every panel member to ask clarifying questions, and then we'll go around again and have an opportunity to provide comments. So this time we'll start in the room. Andrew, do you have any questions? Okay, let's go.
How do you consider waste management on the site?
There will be opportunities in every one of the townhouses to have their own recycling and garbage and so on. And then there's a central garbage area, secure bear-proof garbage area adjacent to the entrance where the bike maintenance and so on is, and the mailbox and so on. That's where that'll be collected.
Okay, so it's a singular garbage shed and
That's right.
manage your own waste how you need to in your
That's
unit. Okay. What is the change in elevation between the two sites, site E and site F?
At the property line?
At the property line.
Well, at the property line, because what Bryce mentioned, we're gonna have raised yards on those townhomes. It'll actually marry up to the other, to parcel E. And then parcel E, because we have our exposed parkade, we'll have terrace landscaping up there.
Okay.
I do believe we can find a section for you guys and show you something.
Sure. Are the amenities and the daycare open to the public on the first site at your first presentation?
As the daycare, sorry.
The daycare, is that open to the public? Is it a public daycare or is that specific to the?
It'll be the provider will be the daycare provider will be open to anybody who uses that daycare.
And the amenities on site site E, the first site we reviewed, are those open to the public as well, or they're just specific to the site?
The clubhouse will be specific to the site, and we're still kind of reviewing the on-site podium amenities. The apartment, all the apartments will be able to access the kind of open space and children's play.
Okay, and so is there any intermingling of the uses of either site, or are they meant to be relatively independent? And then further, do the paths sort of pass through? Are they accessible or otherwise?
They're meant to be relatively independent. The townhome is responsible for maintaining their own site. That's the strata's responsibility.
Okay.
And so typically it'll be used by most of the residents of the townhomes.
That's all my questions.
Thanks, Andrew. Luke, do you have questions for the team?
They do. So it's a 1 meter FCL on the site. Was there any consideration for doing like a flush walkout for an adaptable style sort of townhome unit that could accommodate maybe it's like a stair lift?
Well, there's 3 stories.
Yeah.
Very adaptable.
And
That's what I mean with the stair lift.
yeah, we're not allowed to have any habitable on our at grade. It has to be a meter above.
Yeah,
Because of
I mean
floodplain.
like changing the grade, like
Yeah,
bringing
so
the grade up a meter.
Our
Yeah.
B plans do have that. So the B plans will have a bedroom down on the main floor that you'll walk up to.
Yeah. Okay. The curve, I know the curve in the road to provide the parking, as you mentioned, in front of some of the units. Was there any consideration to do a similar thing on the northeast side and for traffic calming measures?
These, the site plan?
So that one looked like it was straight. That's all. It was all the rest were kind of wavy.
We're presenting this anymore.
Yeah.
You mean,
Yeah.
yeah, in that area.
There is, you're talking about where the road runs, Ross Road.
Parallel, yeah.
East-west. There's a little bit of variation there because of the configuration of the site. We didn't have as much opportunity to modulate the road. There is a little bit, but not as much as the south end.
Okay. And then regarding this style, you mentioned you went for like more of a, I think, rural aesthetic that you went for. Given that the project you just presented was more of a kind of a modern approach, what was the rationale between the two being so different? Or has there already been any consideration for a different architectural style?
Well, we didn't want to be too monotonous. It was, we just see them as unique to each other, that they have their own special identity.
What about sort of the material palette? You've got different color palettes, but is there any different materials that were considered other than fiber cement?
Yeah, they're basic cementitious materials, and I'm just looking for the.
We do have a different stone, so the apartment buildings and the townhomes will have a different stone,
Yeah.
and we've incorporated some metal roofs over the entries along Ross Road as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a question about the circulation. I think it looks like it's done very well, like in connecting through, but there's a couple of areas where it pops off, and I think the lines that appeared like it was intended to walk along the road. Am I reading that right, or was there a sidewalk proposed in those locations, such as like the southeast side?
Yeah,
where it kicks off from the
There-
end of the park?
There is not certainly the units along Ross Road have pedestrian access from Ross Road. The two sets of rows of interior units have access to the mews within, and then the ones on the west side, they would be accessed through front doors from the internal street. But there's no separate pathway for them.
Okay. There's sorry, you mentioned also that the units on that north side step up to match the grading of the apartment buildings. Does the island on that western side where all the gardens are encompassed by those buildings, is that also raised as well? Sorry, there's no site section, so.
Yes.
Yes,
those all
so
have raised
they're
gardens.
also raised as well. So they'll have like kind of elevated internal garden.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any information for the lighting strategy just around the streets and in the park?
We haven't addressed that yet.
Not quite.
No,
No.
I think the intent would be like often there's some areas of the landscape that could potentially have pedestrian scale lighting, but otherwise often the lighting comes from the
Yeah.
buildings.
All of the buildings will have site lighting, and then we'll have bollards kind of within along all the pathways. And then whenever we have stairs, we'll have step lighting as well.
Okay, so like a sconce, it's kind of like a wall sconce on every entry for each residential unit.
Oh, for every townhome, yes. Every home will have their own sconce at the entry, and then there'll also be site lighting on the garage side to make sure that the streets are always illuminated.
Okay, so just typical street lamps dotted around is effectively on the road, is what you're thinking, or just bollards?
Yeah, or landscape lighting.
Okay, yep, that's all my questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Luke. Michael?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Similar question I had the last one is snow removal. Are there any spaces that are being provided for pushing snow? We don't get it as much as Whistler, but we get it here, and then sometimes it is a big challenge.
Walkway clearing, there is lower planting adjacent to the walkway, so there is some space along the walkways where snow could be piled adjacent to the walkways.
But other than that, no, we've not provided snow storage areas.
Okay. And was a sun shade analysis done on the space in terms of where I'm thinking specifically with the community garden space and how much sun that might actually receive?
Yeah.
I don't know if we've run it exactly, but I've visually imagined it, and I think that the way that we're orienting it on the site appears it's twisted. So if you're looking at the landscape plans, they should have lots of sun from the south end of the site, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and those are 2-story levels 2 and 3 for the townhouses space onto that central garden muse.
So this
area.
The townhomes to the south of that central are 2-story. That's
There are 3 stories at the internal lane, but the common area between the two, that's a raised area.
okay. I didn't get that. I was looking at this section and it kind of ended at the building. So
yeah,
We'll take a look to make sure that it's positioned as well as it can, so we get as much sun on those gardens.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess I'm curious about why, like, with the access particularly to the west side, why were those spots selected? Was it based on existing trails, or what was
into the forest?
Into the forest side, yeah.
It is, I do believe that there are some existing trails that are near to those locations.
But the actual spots relative on the plan aren't lining up at this moment with those trails yet.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in terms of access to the central area, was it ever considered to have more permeability into that space?
For pedestrians?
Yeah.
We did as much as we could. We have constraints with visitor parking, and we have to kind of fit visitor parking stalls where we can, which is why we don't have permeability at each of the building blocks.
Mm-hmm.
They do have, like each unit does have direct access to the amenity, and every unit that's facing that amenity has a door that fronts out onto the.
Right. And then same with onto Ross Road. Is it the similar challenges with parking and?
Yeah. in between each unit, that's where you fit the visitor parking.
There's quite a big grade change. So on the Ross Road, you have a 2-story elevation. And so to come between those, you'd have to have stairs all the way down.
Okay, and then, yeah, I think I'll save the rest of mine for comments.
Thanks, Michael. We'll move to the folks online. Celso, recognizing the limited package you received, are there any questions you'd like to pose to the design team?
Yeah, thank you to the design team. This is a much better package. It allows us to have a more comprehensive commentary as well. My questions are, as we have not seen civil or anything like that, but I see this muse in the middle. Is there any stormwater management strategy that you want to talk to us about?
We're working with our civil team to design our storm. We'll have storm throughout the entire site. We'll be connecting to the storm along Ross Road.
That's been identified as a need, as popular it would be with the bottom of the under arcades.
Sorry, can you turn your microphone on?
Yeah, that hasn't been identified as a need for the townhouse site, which is different often from apartment sites.
Right. Yeah, it would be also very useful for us to have a site survey so we can understand better the how the grade goes and some grading plan as well.
Yeah,
so,
can I just add to that? In terms of stormwater management on the site within the landscaped areas, the grading of the site, which I understand you may not have a lot of information on, but the grading on the site would make it quite challenging for us to do a lot of drainage and stormwater management within the landscape. There are some small opportunities, but overall, it would be quite challenging for us to manage it with the landscape alone.
I appreciate. Following another commentary, I see that. So I have a plan here on the landscape DP set. There's site A, B, and C. So my question is, I like the way there's some trees on site A and site B, although I would like to see a little bit more, but let's leave that for later. Why there was an option not to have some trees, street lighting, or anything similar to the other sites on site plan C? And is it possible to incorporate something like that as well?
So you're asking for a lighting plan for the townhouse site, is that it?
I'm asking as to whether there will be some street lighting. Maybe my question is, are the streets service streets or they are public community streets? I don't see any, there's a lot of inconsistencies on the drawings. I see some parallel parking on some sections from landscape, which doesn't seem to be the approach. I don't see dimensions on the sidewalks, and I see only a diagram showing pedestrian circulation. I'm wondering if the sidewalks would incorporate a multi-use path or something like that for bicycles, and how that permeability or more porosity could be handled through the site. I think there's going to be, sorry, it's not a question, but it's kind of an assumption. There's going to be a lot of kids moving around from one neighbor to the other, sleepovers and whatnot. And if you look at the circulation plan, the pedestrian, sometimes that's going to be a long walk. I have concerns about SEPTED. Unfortunately, we don't have a mandate. Yes.
Just to remind you, we will have a second opportunity to provide comments. So this is really for the clarifying questions.
So my question is, as I started, why is there any reason for site plan C not to follow the same density of trees along the street, and whether there will be a more street-like poles lighting?
This is C.
Well, I can make a short commentary on the street trees. I think in this, I'm assuming that by site plan C, you mean the more northern end of the site that connects to the
That's
condos, is that correct?
correct.
So the constraint that we have with street trees is we need our trees to be farther away from the building and for fire smart. And also we need to be able to have a large enough planting area that our trees can thrive in that space. And so on the north end, the spaces there were constrained a little bit more, and it was the tree planting there would be a bit too close to the building to comply with fire smart regulations.
Okay. All the other questions I had were already asked. Thank you.
Thanks. Also, we'll go to Sarah for clarifying questions.
Sure, just one question, and I mean, again, relating to the package and not being able to download the landscape plan made it a bit tricky, but is there an accessible pathway into the sort of pavilion amenity space that's just north of the gardens?
Yes.
Okay. Great. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And Elle, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. They're related to each other. So just thinking about the traffic and the pedestrian experience, I think at the garage door where people will be probably predominantly accessing their units, really, because everyone's going to be driving up there. We tend to end up with, like, if not carefully planned, like walls of garage doors and hard to interact with our neighbors. And it's like the truth of just all of us having gear and cars and trucks and, you know, multi-car families. So I guess I'm curious about I know it's really hard to overcome from like a design perspective too, but what are your considerations around how you will try to not promote just this, like, go into your garage, don't talk to anybody, there's cars parked everywhere, and you have kind of a wall of garages you're facing up those long corridors?
Yes, Elle, we do have, if you look at the plan, I assume you have the plans there. For example,
Yeah,
there's a
I'm having trouble
double.
loading some of them, so feel free to share your screen if it's easier.
Okay,
Do we know how to do that?
I can't share mine, but yeah, so where there is a double car garage,
I
there's
see it.
also the amend door, the front entry door into a vestibule space. So in fact, that's,
I'm not doing it. Somebody else is. No, I'm not. I'm not touching.
this is my computer.
Okay, I'll put the right one on here though. I can do this now. Where do you want to show that one?
Yeah, this is the development permit set.
Yeah, just
Oh,
you can go back. Yeah, right there.
Yeah,
There.
sorry, for
There.
some reason the DP set for me, some of it didn't load properly, so I might have missed some of the
Okay,
details
so
when I was
you can
reviewing
see
it.
with the A plans that they have, besides the garage, they also have a principal front door. And with the B plans, the entrance is on the other side from where the garages are. And on the C plans, the garages are at one level and any entry doors are at level 2, so an elevated level. So we're hoping that it's a variety of approaches, but we're hoping that all of that allows for good pedestrian connectivity without having to go through the garage.
Okay.
Can I add to that? Sorry. I think the other thing that should be noted is with the undulation and the variation in the drive lane, particularly along that west side road, I think that's going to help to soften and mitigate that like wall of garages that you would typically see. So there's some of those units that have a bit more of a driveway, so that those residents are going to spill out onto their driveway from time to time. And then because it's not just a long straight, it's just a little bit more inviting and friendly. So I think that will help quite a bit as well.
Great. And I that's helpful. I think I'll save my Actually, you know what? I do have one more question, and I don't know if it's going to be for this or from some of our planner folks, but I'm curious about the single entrance to Ross Road and just with traffic management and a lot of vehicles coming and going. I guess how that.
Sure, that is an engineering department decision, and that was the guidance that they provided early on with this application.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there.
Yes, so this project went through a pre-application meeting before it was submitted, and the engineering department regulates driveway crossings, and they advise the applicants to use a single driveway to enter the site.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Elle. Is Kim with us still? I don't see her on screen.
No, but she did put some comments in the chat.
Okay. Is someone able to read those out?
Sure, I can.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry, I can't see the chat, so.
It says,
Thanks,
I
Sarah.
need to leave. Just a few comments. Again, I would like to see more variation in form as you've showed in your precedents. You could also vary profile of siding from board and batten to shingle or flush panel so that all units are not the same. Can you put some glazing of garage doors so that streets with garages are not such a blank face? Apologies for leaving early.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. We'll make sure that we enter those comments in the comment period, which is now.
Sorry, I
Oh,
had one
more questions, Michael.
Question. Just talking about the garage doors, and I was looking at the plans more closely, and I'm seeing a number of places where it looks like there's 2 pedestrian accesses to the front entrance of the building, and then a connection across to both sides of the garage. So in some cases, you have like 3 strips of planting, and then 2 access aisles, or 1 access with 2 smaller entrances. Is there a reason that you need to connect both driveways to an entrance when the I guess what I'm looking at is potentially a way to maximize the planting space and minimize the paved space so that you can protect your planting more, because I know sometimes these thin little postage stamp landscapings can get neglected and beaten, especially when we have narrow driveways and people try to get out of their cars and turn in. So I'm just wondering if there's a reason why the pedestrian accesses to the front entrance are the way they are, or if they could be, if there's a reason to relook at that.
If I may, with the A plans, which are the westernmost string of units, it has 1 common sidewalk leading up to a front door with landscape on either side of the walkway, with the B plans, and then.
Are you recommending that we pair more entries to just be able to use more landscape space?
I think you're recommending that we pair the landscape spaces together
Hmm.
rather than have, and I think that is manageable. What we've got in a lot of them is a separate walkway from the street to each unit.
Mhm.
And we could look at pairing that walkway. So it's 1 walkway to split to 2 doors, and then the landscape gets consolidated.
Or
Or there's no street, you go up the driveway.
you could, using the different materials, have the walkway adjacent to
The
driveway, because oftentimes.
Put a big area in the middle.
Yeah, people open their doors and they're stepping out into the landscape when it's narrow. I just know that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Anyway, something to
that's-
look at.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Thank you.
Any last questions before we move on to comments? Seeing none, we'll go back to Andrew for comments.
Thank you for answering the questions. The couple of comments that I have, I think in relation to 36.4F and or 36.10A, I think the buildings themselves are varied in their massing. And I think that they are varied in their materiality, but particularly to the south side of the site, and in line with some of the some of my other colleagues' comments. The garage doors and the streets themselves are somewhat monotonous in how linear they are. I think that though those two elements are partially achieved, but more variation in the siting or the building articulation could be achieved in the southern side of the site. Those are all the comments I have.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what you pointed out. Here we are at the south end.
So the south end, so the lanes, they'll be running left, right on the page as we see them. Those buildings on the streets that run left and right or north, south of the site, the buildings themselves are particularly linear. The garage doors themselves will similarly be particularly linear. And so there is neither articulation in the units themselves nor in the siting of the buildings.
Okay, so those are the ones facing onto Ross Road. Okay.
Ross Road and the Western Road as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrew. We'll go to Luke.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that second presentation. Yeah, I think overall, like for me, like the general site arrangement and site layout make a lot of sense to me. It's quite logical, given it's a very long linear site, 4 rows of townhomes, 2 rows of roads, very, very efficient. Makes sense. And yeah, I think that the way you've transitioned the grade down from the apartment buildings by using backyards is a really great strategy, and I applaud that. And then also using that next island on, where I think we're referring to it as the north side or site A, and having their backyards become much more usable, and that's a really great way forward. And yeah, and that's really good, and I support that. I am just gonna, I totally agree with Andrew's previous comment there, and I'm just gonna add a little bit more color to it. I do find, and let's use the south side as the example, or site C for reference. Yeah, I think it's the fact that the townhomes are all in a line, and they're all every single one of them is arranged. And they literally, the garages are all fully lined up. So when you look down that road, you're going to see 4 townhouse blocks, and that's going to be quite monotonous. It could appear so. I support the deviation in the road. I think that is a great and it'd be very successful in providing not just parking to opposing roads, but giving, opposing units, but also allowing the people to slow down. Because I do find, even though these are small areas, other precedents that we've got in Squamish, people fly through them. So that would be very successful. I would recommend doing the same thing to the road that's adjacent to Ross Road on the site C. That's the one road that is straight, and it's the one that's actually on the screen right now. You can see. I think it looks like it could be possible to actually meander that road a bit more. And then also the road treatment that is used throughout the site. I think that the connection of the mid park and where the road treatment has transitioned is great. It would be lovely to see that in a couple of other places where the pathways connect. I know on site C, there's an area where the pathway connects to the road, but it just sort of dies off of the road. Maybe some of that language can be brought more throughout the site. Following on that, the site circulation is also quite logical and seems to work very well. There's just 2 areas where I would point out I'd recommend a sidewalk or a pathway being introduced, and that is on that southeast side where it connects from the B block to Ross Road, and the northeast, which is site A, or site plan C, and where the C block connects up. They're right on that northeast side there, or northwest of the plan, actually.
You mean on this side of the road here?
Oh, go left. Further left, that one. So that dotted arrow there. Yeah, and then the one on the far right.
And in here?
Yeah.
Right
and
here somewhere?
It could either go in there or the one that is far right. Down, that one. Yeah. 'Cause that's where those pathways seem to just meander onto the road. And
Yeah, okay.
it would make sense to just make it just for a tiny bit more space. I think it'd be very worthwhile.
Okay.
Okay, architecturally, I just to run over what Michael was talking about there with making some of the entries twinned or not twinned. I would say just be mindful that would likely flip the architectural plan. And right now there's some significant variation in not having a flipped plan. But when you start to mirror things to marry entries, it creates less architectural articulation. And so that would be just a consideration because currently the variation is quite successful. I've already spoken to the massing being more offset for the buildings, but I think there's also some particular attention should be paid to the ends of these townhome units where the road turns 90 degrees. I think there's a bit more detail and attention that could be paid to how the front face of the building turns its corner and becomes one cohesive piece of architecture. I would also like to see the development. I understand the rationale for having the development being its own unique piece, but it is all one character in a way, and it would be nice to see some kind of fluidity and cohesiveness flow through the Cheekeye development in some way. Just given the fact that this is very raw, a lot more, I guess it's a lot more traditional of an aesthetic, and it is somewhat jarring when it's put right next to this apartment building. I would like to see some kind of mishmash of the two in some way, shape, or form, and that could even be something as simple as like, rather than just going fiber cement throughout, bringing some softer materials in there. Like you can have some wood siding in here as an accent, but obviously maintenance is an issue. But I think it'll be totally achievable. And
Just one note on, we can't have any combustible, no wood for fire. You can have up to 10% of.
Yeah, you can have an accent in a primary wildfire zone in Squamish. You should be able to have some kind of wood in some shape or form, as long as it's got either a coating or it's resistant in some way. But I'll let the district comment on that. And those are all my comments for now.
Thanks, Luke. Over to Michael for comments.
Okay. A lot of my comments have to do with access. I think with the south access onto Ross Road, I think that there's still a stairway in that access. Is that, sorry, this is kind of a question, but is that, yeah, so there's only one, yeah. So there's only one accessible access from Ross Road. And I really think that there needs to be some more accessible access points somehow along that, because for someone who does have mobility challenges, it's a long way to go around. So being able to shortcut that for everyone, I think would be a big benefit to this site. I feel that the access points into the pedestrian access into that central amenity space, they do feel like quite tight and constrained, and it would be great to somehow find how we can widen those a bit or provide a bit more, just so they feel a bit more inviting, and that you can actually see that there is this central space from the street, and to that extent too, indicating on the laneway that this is an access point, whether that's a change in paving or some sort of feature, because there are going to be kids around here and they're going to be on Strider bikes and they're going to be zipping out of these things. And if delivery people don't know the site, they're not going to be ready for that. So I think just in terms of protecting how all ages are going to use this site and making it a safe space that way. And then with the north end here, kind of what Celso was talking about in the lack of trees, I understand there's a fire smart guidelines that might restrict trees, but that central block of townhomes, my understanding is that the backyard space is at least 3 meters higher than the pedestrian space. So when you're walking by that, it's going to feel fairly concrete and massive. And you kind of like, there's been a nice progression of landscape and soft elements that kind of lead people through the center of the site. And then as you connect to the pool amenity across, it becomes really stark and feels really cold and doesn't carry through. So I think if there's a way to provide a bit more space, to provide some trees, particularly through that connection to the north site, and sort of minimize the presence of this 3-meter wall. And to that extent, I was also curious about how those elevated backyard spaces will be accessed for maintenance with lawn mowing, and presumably there'll be a maintenance company that's going to have to somehow get a lawnmower up the stairs and then through there. So yeah, I think just some consideration for snow removal and access for maintenance in general through the site. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. We'll head over to the online participants for comments now. Celso, do you have comments?
Yes, thank you. So thanks again to the design team. I think this is a great neighborhood. There's some very interesting design features. I echo a whole bunch of all the other comments that were made in terms of variation and whatnot. I'm going to focus on the streets. As Michael was saying, I don't have the. I'm going to confess I don't know much about the regulations of the fire safe and whatnot, but it looks like the profile of the street on that site plan C is not different than the others. So I would strongly recommend that you take a look at getting something a little bit more consistent throughout the site. I recommend you look at your, it is Ronhart Architects sheet A0.1. I think you will see what I'm talking about. I think that street is very sterile. And I would suggest that there is a sidewalk in one side, at least, and trees and street lighting. I don't particularly believe in the lighting that it's on top of this garage doors to be providing proper lighting at the street level. And as other people commented, there's going to be people riding bikes, walking, taking their dogs for a stroll, kids and whatnot. So 2 things I would recommend: that there is some strategy at mid-block or whatever your traffic consultant may advise to have some traffic slowing kind of strategy, whether it's a raised pavement, different pavement with some noise or whatever it is that can make people, both residents and non-resident service providers, are not to kind of slow down a little bit. Some of the streets are quite long and people can develop some speed there, and I'm concerned about the safety. I don't know if you guys are looking at the A01. There is the back of the street front. Yeah, you probably don't have the same because I have a completely different set of drawings. But yeah, sorry, one back. Sorry. Anyway, 2 things. So make that street a little bit more live, and I'm wondering if you could look at that very long continuous balcony that you have on the 2nd floor. It creates a horizontal line that is detrimental to, you know, the breaking down of the townhomes as well. Maybe there's a chance to work a little bit better on that one. I think my comments are on the street mainly, to have a multi-use path, have more trees as the other 2 sites. The other, I think, are great. I actually have 2 projects I'm working on that I use the same approach of, zigzag streets. And in my case, there's going to be off-street parking, and that is a great strategy. I think it can look fantastic with some minor improvement. Congratulations. I think it's a great project. Thank you.
Thanks. Also, over to Sarah for comments.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to fully comment on the landscaping plan just because I'm not able to see it very well. But if you are going to be combining kind of sidewalks to doors on driveways, is just to make sure that it's not a rollover curb at the end of the driveway. Those are really difficult to actually wheel up if you don't have a motor. So just consider that. And then also just from a wayfinding standpoint of, these long, monotonous, similar buildings are going to be very difficult for anybody with any kind of cognitive disability. So, maybe thinking about, even a bit more difference in door color, things of that sort to make it a bit more recognizable for those people. That's all my comments right now.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. And Elle, comments for the project.
Yeah, I think just echoing what everybody else has talked about with variety. I think just wherever you can add in that visual variety for all the reasons that have already been discussed and talked about is just, I think, going to help make it such a wonderful experience for the people who are living there. And then similar to the last presentation, I know it's tougher because your backyards go right to the property line, but any ways that you can be thinking about the connections to what's happening around in the forest and the local community that does exist in that area. That's it.
Thank you, Elle. And then just to get Kim's comments in the right place, Kim suggested looking for opportunities for more variation in building form and cladding, and had that suggestion really thinking about the impact of the garage doors on the street experience, the pedestrian experience, suggesting maybe specking doors, garage doors that have glazing in them. Okay.
Sorry, I wanted to add one
Yeah.
more comment just about adding the variation. I think one potential way to look at adding some variation is to change up the species within the streetscape, because I think they're all the same tree species. So yeah, looking at different forms of trees could also help with that.
Okay. So I'll try and summarize quickly the comments that we've heard here. So there was a suggestion thinking about the landscape, suggestion to undertake solar analysis to ensure optimum location of the gardens. Several comments suggesting that there may be some opportunity to add trees and vegetation at the northern portion of the site, recognizing that there are fire smart considerations, but also noting that it seems to be a little bit underprovided up there. There was a suggestion that trees and plant species could help to differentiate the townhouses. And then some comment on ensuring that snow removal is thought through. Thinking about sort of the neighborhood and placemaking, suggestions that the applicant undertake a more comprehensive approach to connections with the existing trail network. There may be an opportunity to minimize the impact of the big garage doors on the street by looking at bringing in garage doors with glazing. Also similarly looking at perhaps having different setbacks or more variation on that street edge. So the front setbacks of the buildings. And again, similarly, that would impact the wayfinding, to have more differentiation between the townhouse blocks and the different portions of the site. There's a suggestion that perhaps there could be some thought given into how the two projects we considered tonight address each other, whether there's some Cheekeye motif that could go across both projects and maybe even be incorporated into other future projects. That could be something like a highlight in the building materials, or maybe within the landscaping. Thinking about the circulation, recognizing that this is a direction from the District of Squamish Engineering, there was some concern about the single vehicle entrance from this fairly large project onto Ross Road. And then also suggestion that the applicant investigate additional pedestrian entrances to Ross Road or from Ross Road. That recognition that particularly on the southern portion of the site, there's quite a long road that's straight. So perhaps there could be some more variation in building, siting, and articulation, and even the alignment of that road. Recognizing as well that with that such a long straight road, there could be concerns with traffic speed. So while it's an internal narrow strata road, perhaps raised bumps and material change as well as road alignment could help address that. Similarly, maybe road, like paving materials, could help to reinforce where the pathways are. And please ensure no rollover curbs for the driveways. I think there were a few comments around the cladding materials, looking for more variation in the material and type of cladding. With the building massing, suggestion that there is maybe an opportunity for greater variation in building form. And again, as we said earlier, maybe building setbacks. There was suggestions around having twinned entries, recognizing as well there is a concern that could have a negative impact on building variation with the requirement for mirroring. Suggestion that there's more detailing given to the townhome ends where there's a road corner. There's an opportunity to differentiate units with the balconies. And then in terms of accessibility, suggestion to ensure that there is accessible pedestrian accesses from Ross Road into the site more than just the vehicle entrance, and ensuring that the internal pathways to the central green areas are wide and welcoming. How's that? Pretty good? Okay.
I think that there was just a comment about access to the amenity space, the pool, that be improved from an accessibility.
Okay, and so the pathway from the townhouse site to the clubhouse and amenity space on the other site, ensuring that is wide, accessible, and I think maybe again there was some suggestion that there could be additional landscaping. Okay,
Correct.
so again, we have the same four recommendations that we need to choose among. So again, they are support the project as presented, don't need to see it again, support the project and would have the applicant work with district staff to resolve our recommendations. Third, support the project, resolve our recommendations and return to present it again. Or fourth, that we don't support the project. Would someone like to move one of the recommendations?
I move B.
I see. So move that we support the project and would ask the applicant to work with staff to resolve our recommendations. Is there a second or?
Second.
I see Celso second. And do I have support for that? Anyone in support? I see a lot of support. It looks like that is our recommendation. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Luke, I didn't understand your comments about Combining the.
Yeah.
John, you need to
We have to terminate the meeting. Could I have
Yeah.
someone move to terminate the meeting? Andrew, second. Luke, seconds. All in
Again,
favor?
sorry,
Sarah?
I just think that we need to really reiterate that we're getting these incomplete packages as we have
Yeah.
for years, and we actually need to have them standardized and consistently brought to us, because it's really difficult to understand what's happening when you can't properly open up a document or you haven't been given the document. So I think that planning needs to do better.
Thanks, Sarah. So we'll just make sure that that recommendation, not to the applicant, but to the district, and not specifically related to this project, but related to every project, is that there's clear expectations on what information the panel receives, that there's standardization of the packages that we receive, and a commitment that we are going to receive the full packages so that we can really review them and actually provide valuable comments. Okay, I see
In
Celso.
addition to that, it's like same issue is that the applicant in his presentation used the same set of drawings that we have reviewed and not bring new and additional information. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now we had a motion and a seconder to terminate the meeting. We'll do a vote. All in favor of finishing the meeting? Okay. Now we're done. Thanks, everybody. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
And I would think that the district would want to have that publicly accessible, the development permit. I find when I sit on a design panel and somebody just presents to me on the panel what we've already looked through with drawings. I mean, we're professionals. We know what to look for. And so the opportunity for presentation design panel should be, what's the story behind all of this? How does this pull together and that sort of thing? And not just repeat the information you've already seen.
I totally agree. I think it's unfortunate that we didn't have a short side plan, so it's goes with all of that. I don't want to say you guys were so. Yeah, well, so I was like.